Oh boy, we're in for a hell of a roller coaster with these games, folks. 15 years has Square Enix's Kingdom Hearts series taken us on grand adventures across many worlds, a story involving an ongoing battle between the light and darkness, the cheerful tone intended for the younger generation, but also some darker elements thrown in for the adults, and perhaps most famously, it was a completely unexpected crossover between two major icons, the gritty, surreal characters of Final Fantasy and the bright, colorful worlds of Disney. And that's where most people would say to themselves, okay, come on, where's the real game? Seriously, Final Fantasy and Disney? That is doomed to be a failure. Square Enix has obviously no idea what they're doing, they've clearly given up, nobody could possibly like it. Oh, it sold 5.6 million copies and won numerous awards. Yes, the concept alone turned a lot of heads, not to mention that the game was also a hack-and-slash RPG made by the Final Fantasy makers themselves, known as Squaresoft at the time, before merging with Enix. But it was just such an odd idea that we had to play it. I actually remember renting this game as well back in 2002 when it just came out for the PlayStation 2. Ah, my all-time favorite console. There were so many fantastic games for it. Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal, Devil May Cry 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, God of War 2, Ape Escape 2, Twisted Metal Black, Gradius 5, the list goes on and on. My dad got Kingdom Hearts at our local Blockbusters while that was still a thing, because being avid Disney fans at the time, my brother and I saw the commercial and we got really hyped for it. Unfortunately, we didn't get too far in the game. We managed to arrive in Wonderland and got really stuck on where to go next. That's only about 3 hours into the game, and we got so lost that we just simply gave up and never went back to it. Keep in mind that back then, we were mainly used to playing platformers and fighting games, so this was our very first RPG, and we didn't know how it all worked. Because of how confused my brother and I were, we didn't get a chance to play another Kingdom Hearts game until my dad flew back from a business trip in America and gave us a couple of PS2 games, since we moved to England and still had an American PS2. My brother was given Destroy All Humans 2, which is also a great game by the way, while I was given Kingdom Hearts 2. I'll save my memories for this game when I eventually get around to doing it, but I could not for the life of me put it down. I got so addicted and fell absolutely in love with Kingdom Hearts 2. But despite that, I still wouldn't go back to the series until the 1.5 and 2.5 HD remixes came out for the PS3. For these reviews, we'll be looking at the recently released PS4 versions that provide 1080p visuals and at 60 FPS, which makes the combat much smoother than it was before. The PS3 collections are okay to play with too, but the visuals are at 30 FPS and at 720p, and the load times are a bit longer than the PS4 versions. The PS4 collection impressively also has both remixes on one whole disc, while the PS3 versions come as two separate bundles. All of these collections, except for 2.8 and Chain of Memories, contain the final mix versions of the games, which have added content like more boss fights and new weapons, and a few little changes that I'll gradually go through. Japan's had these remixes for years, but everywhere else didn't get them until the PS3 collections came out in 2013 and 2014. Now, unless reviewing games became a full-time job for me, I definitely don't have the time anymore to dedicate a whole marathon to long RPGs. It would have been more possible while I was heavily unemployed and still going through university, but now that I've graduated and I have commitments to make, So we're instead going to be gradually going through the games as time goes on, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to talk about all the games just before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, hopefully in 2018. This game's been on fans' minds for over a decade, and we've only just now gotten a release date as of July 2017. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with the story to Kingdom Hearts 1. We start off with the trippy dream sequence accompanied by J-pop, because dream sequences always play J-pop in the background, where our young protagonist named Sora can't seem to decide whether he wants to stay on Destiny Islands where he lives or if he wants to go swimming through the water without even moving. I say this because during this opening he keeps swapping back and forth about 3 times before the game even begins. It's weird, it doesn't make sense, and it's only there so that the song can finish playing. And I'm sorry, I know this is a classic Kingdom Hearts song, but I really dislike Simple and Clean. I don't think it at all fits with the theme of the game, the singing is awful, and it sounds like they're making it up on the spot. Anyway, after I've just pissed off a lot of Kingdom Hearts enthusiasts, Sora continues dreaming about the tutorial and fighting these mysterious shadows and even his own shadow that turns into a giant shadow called Darkseid. Hope you like this boss fight because you're going to be seeing a whole lot of Darkseids in this series. Once that's done, Sora wakes up to his best friend slash kinda sorta love interest Kairi and his other best friend Riku. The three of them want to build a raft to leave Destiny Islands and see new worlds, and it's up to you to get the right materials for it, while Kairi and Riku just sit around doing nothing. This is also where you optionally battle a few Final Fantasy characters. You've got Selphie from Final Fantasy VIII, and yes, that's really your name, as well as Tidus and Wakka from Final Fantasy X. Sure, go ahead, beat up a little girl. You get nothing for doing so, but at least you can do it. Once the materials are all collected, the kids rest up for the big day tomorrow, but a dark portal appears above Destiny Island, spouting an army of those shadows we saw earlier known as the Heartless. Riku is found just below the portal and mysteriously disappears, while Kairi looks zombified and goes through Sora when she's being launched towards him. At the same time, Sora is also given the Keyblade, a large key that's used as a weapon to destroy the Heartless. It doesn't look very dangerous though, I think it'd give the Heartless a concussion at best. But after fighting another Darkseid, the portal causes the islands to disappear and Sora to drift in space. Meanwhile, in Disney Castle, Donald Duck and Goofy discover that their king, Mickey Mouse, is left on his own journey to defeat the Heartless, leaving them with instructions to fighting the Keyblade wielder and protect the world from darkness. The Heartless's main goals are just stealing as many hearts as they can and consume them. However, if a person loses their heart, they become a Heartless as well. We're not talking physical hearts here though, they're more like souls or spirits that get sucked out of people. Sora eventually wakes up in Traverse Town, where he then meets up with Yuffie from Final Fantasy VII and Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, now going by the name Leon, as he's looking to fix the mistakes he's somehow made after his world was taken over by the Heartless. We've also got Aerith from Final Fantasy VII, who Donald and Goofy run into, and explain that a guy named Ansem has been doing research on the Heartless and could be responsible for this predicament. However, they're suddenly interrupted by a group of Heartless, which after destroying them, bring Sora, Donald, and Goofy together and form a pact to rid the many worlds of darkness and to seal the hidden keyholes, preventing the Heartless from consuming any more hearts. And these worlds are all based on various Disney movies with abridged stories from those movies, as well as a few Heartless thrown in. The order of Disney worlds consists of Wonderland from Alice in Wonderland, Deep Jungle from Tarzan, Agrabah from Aladdin, Monstro from Pinocchio, Atlantica from The Little Mermaid, Halloween Town from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Neverland from Peter Pan. We also have a few areas made up for Kingdom Hearts, like Hollow Bastion and the end of the world near the closing point of the game. And as well as that, we have a couple of optional areas, like Olympus Coliseum from Hercules and 100 Acre Wood from Winnie the Pooh. Sadly, there aren't any Final Fantasy worlds to explore, which is a shame because I'd have thought a crossover between them and Disney would allow at least Midgar or the World of Balance. Maybe in Kingdom Hearts 3? Come on, give the Final Fantasy characters some love too. I would love to have Kefka Palazzo as a boss. Anyway, concurrently, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty has gathered some of the Disney villains to work together and to find the 7 Princesses of Heart, where one of them turns out to be Kairi, and for some reason Alice. Not Ariel though, I guess being a fish has its downfalls in this master plan. Once all of the 7 Princesses of Heart are found, they can be used to unlock the keyhole that leads to Kingdom Hearts, which is supposed to be the source of all darkness that can be used to take over the galaxy. But not only that, Riku is also joining Maleficent and her merry band of misfits, as he wants to save Kairi too, but also thinks his friendship with Sora is being replaced by Donald and Goofy, because I'm gonna say this now, Riku is a complete asshole in this game. He's constantly trying to proclaim how much better he is than Sora and how he doesn't deserve to hold the Keyblade and save Kairi, but he never seems to think that maybe joining forces with someone who looks like this isn't such a good idea. Or the fact that he's known Sora for years, yet he chooses to believe this witch he's known for minutes. I think the part that made me hate him the most was when you step into Hollow Bastion and he tests the Keyblade to see if it chooses its master, and after it surprisingly picks Riku, he proceeds to further taunt Sora, saying how he was just the delivery boy and throws him a wooden sword that they used to play with as kids, telling him to play hero while the grown-ups do the work. I'm frankly shocked that Sora still even wants to be his friend after that, but we do see later that Riku's become possessed by Ansem, the researcher that Aerith mentioned at the beginning. Whether or not Riku was already possessed by Ansem at this time doesn't matter, because he's still a douchebag from the start. However, this is the only game where he acts like this, as his personality does get much better in the sequels. And Ansem doesn't take over Riku and make him voiced by Billy Zane. Kinda random casting, but it works. He does have a pretty cool voice and can be rather intimidating even if we don't see much of Ansem until the final battle. Impressively as well, some of the original voice actors for the Disney characters make their return in Kingdom Hearts, including Catherine Beaumont as Alice and Wendy. Bless her soul, she's still voicing these characters after so many decades. What a trooper. A lot of people's favorite returning Disney actor though tends to be James Woods as Hades, and he is very entertaining, but I've always thought Jafar was a better villain. He was always more sinister and menacing to me, while Hades was clearly only there for laughs. And I'm glad to see Jonathan Freeman voice Jafar again, it just wouldn't be the same without him, and the same goes for James Woods. Less credible are the voices that try to mimic the characters they play, sometimes quite poorly I might add, or actors that come back from the straight to VHS and DVD sequels, like Dan Castellaneta as the genie instead of Robin Williams. The Final Fantasy characters do a decent job though, except for Leon, who sounds completely bored during recording, and I'm surprised to see that we've got Rapunzel from Tangled doing the voice of Aerith. She managed to get in something Disney related before even being in a Disney movie. There's also Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense doing the voice of Sora, and he's a perfect fit for the role. But the actress for Kairi does a pretty good job too. Riku, on the other hand, sounds like he's hit puberty way before anyone else, and something just feels off about it, while Sora's and Kairi's voices have still yet to break. Alright, sorry about that, got way off track there. Kairi's body's eventually found, but it doesn't seem to have a heart, until we confront Riku/Ansem again and figure out that her heart was in Sora all along after they had a spiritual hug in Destiny Islands. I don't know who the hell would remember that little detail their first time playing. But Riku is defeated and Sora uses Ansem's Keyblade to release both his and Kairi's hearts. Kairi's heart returns to her body, but Sora unfortunately turns into a Heartless as a consequence. Not for long though, because we very shortly run into the gang and Kairi somehow recognizes Sora and gives him another hug, where the light surrounding her heart somehow restores Sora back to human form. Okay, this is getting increasingly cheesy now, so let's finally take on Ansem outside of Destiny Islands and eventually Kingdom Hearts itself, which is just a door. But after defeating him, we discover that Kingdom Hearts is not the source of all darkness, it's the source of all light, even though we can clearly see there's a ton of dark stuff in there. Kingdom Hearts opens and Ansem reacts to the light like he's Dracula. Actually, he'd be pretty cool in a Castlevania game. But on the other side of the door is King Mickey, giving us his one appearance in the entire game, as well as Riku, now free from Ansem's grasp. The two of them help close Kingdom Hearts, locking them in the Heartless inside, and the worlds the Heartless destroyed are now reforming, including Destiny Islands. Kairi is forced to return to Destiny Islands, but Sora swears he'll come back for her, and the post-credit scene has our heroes starting a new goal, looking for Riku and Mickey, and by meeting the right conditions at the right difficulty, we get a secret ending with a much grittier tone than what we previously saw, and showing two Keyblade wielders duking it out for reasons we're not clear on yet, all setting up for a potential sequel. God damn, that's a lot to take in, and I'm sorry to say folks, this is as basic as the plot's gonna get. The Kingdom Hearts series is incredibly infamous for having one of the most complicated and confusing storylines in any video game franchise. I'd say it's worse than the Metal Gear Solid games, but one of the main reasons the stories are so hard to figure out in my opinion is because of the script. There's a lot of pointless dialogue in the series, way more than all of the Metal Gear games combined, and the dialogue that is important can be often clumsily written and sometimes cringingly corny, leading to a fair amount of misinterpretation, especially your first time through. No matter how many times the characters hammer the concept of light and darkness into your head, they never explain what they actually do. All we know is that light is good and darkness is evil. That's it. Well, what determines who's surrounded by light and who's surrounded in darkness? Is it their personality, their background history, their environment? The concept of light and darkness in the world of Kingdom Hearts is so incredibly vague. But why am I still invested in this story? Maybe it's because for how schmaltzy and sickly sweet the premise is, they at least made most of the characters pretty likable, but even Riku is fairly redeeming near the end. And this may sound weird, but you want to know what made me like Sora as a character? It's at the end of Hollow Bastion and they're in a pretty dire situation, but just before Sora tackles the issue himself, bam, that smile. We don't see that smile very often, and the fact that he can still deal with situations with a happy face is admirable. The Disney and Final Fantasy characters are just there for the sake of obligatory cameos, but they're very entertaining too. The worlds you travel in are a lot of fun, but it's the story surrounding those worlds that's the bigger picture. Executive Square producer Hironobu Sakaguchi told Kingdom Hearts director Tetsuya Nomura that unless the story was as deep and complex as the Final Fantasy games, Kingdom Hearts would have been dead on arrival, so Mr. Nomura made it his mission to write an interesting story that perfectly ties together with the Disney worlds, which I believe is a really smart move from both him and Sakaguchi. If the Kingdom Hearts series just had you going to these different Disney universes for no rhyme or reason, it would have gotten old very quickly. And while the stories in these games can get a little full of themselves, the epic fantasy storytelling gives these games the punch they needed to keep people playing. But look at me still talking about the story. We've taken this long and we haven't even covered the gameplay yet, so why don't we go ahead and do that? The Kingdom Hearts series are hack and slash RPGs where killing Heartless grant you experience points and level you up when you earn enough. Each level can boost your stats like normal RPGs do, but sometimes they also give you new abilities to help improve Sora's combat abilities, like extra hits and performing special attacks to deal more damage and in large crowds at the cost of magic points. At the start of the game you can pick what you excel at between offense, defense, and magic, while not being as efficient with one of the other options. Whichever you pick will determine what level you need to be to earn certain abilities. Donald and Goofy act as party members throughout the whole game and have their own set of abilities. Donald's the mage of the group, so he relies on magic, while Goofy is Mickey's appointed knight, so he mainly focuses on brute force. The various Disney worlds you visit as well will have their own exclusive party member from the appropriate Disney movie, like Tarzan in Deep Jungle, Aladdin in Agrabah, or Peter Pan in Neverland, on top of Beast for some reason being in Hollow Bastion, an area entirely made up for Kingdom Hearts and has nothing to do with Beauty and the Beast. But Belle's here, so that counts, right? I never understand why you can only have 3 party members in this game though. There's no point to it since there's only 1 extra character in most of the worlds. Just seems like a needless limitation to me. And it's annoying when I come across a Trinity mark that requires both Donald and Goofy, and I have to go all the way back to a save point and swap my party members just to get a chest that's probably not even worth it. And when you're not opening these chests, your party members are constantly dying and don't do much to help other than occasionally healing you or restoring MP when you give them the right abilities. Some party members can be pretty badass though, like Aladdin with his high damaging sword flailing, and surprisingly Ariel can kick a lot of tail. She's one of my personal favorites actually, though I don't remember her casting any magic in The Little Mermaid. Jack Skellington can do it too for some reason. Where were these godlike powers when they needed them in their movies? The aim in each of the worlds is to explore and meet with the locals from the respective Disney movies with stories that tie very loosely to the source material, but with some Heartless to deal with at the same time. After defeating the bosses of that world, there's a large keyhole reveal that Sora seals to stop the Heartless from swallowing up any more people's hearts. Each of the worlds only take around an hour to complete, which does make the stories of the movies feel rather rushed and the characters barely fleshed out, but at the same time this stops everything from becoming monotonous and repetitive. Still though, the only way you can have any slight connection with the Disney characters is if you've seen the movies, and that's a problem. Traverse Town is so confusing to make progress. You never know where you're supposed to go because there's almost zero direction, and triggering the next cutscene can often happen by accident. Wonderland, despite its name, is actually a pretty boring world. All it has is the Queen of Hearts garden, this dank forest with tons of Heartless, and this bizarre room that rotates depending on how you enter. It's no wonder I got so stuck all those years ago. And this pisses me off because Alice in Wonderland is one of my favorite Disney movies. Deep Jungle's the next world you visit, and you tediously need to go back and forth between the treehouse and Jane's tent, while at the same time awkwardly swinging across these vines to make your way back. Agrabah's quite a cool area though. You get to explore the town and make your way through the Cave of Wonders to fight Jafar and find treasure. Monstro, on the other hand, while short, is just a dull maze to throw you off and isn't visually appealing either. Atlantica's okay. I don't find it as bad as most players seem to think it is, and the swimming controls are manageable for me, but the decrease in accessible abilities is admittedly a turnoff. Not the best area, but not the worst either. Halloween Town's another sweet area though. I enjoy going through the graveyard and climbing up Oogie Boogie's tower, and the gothic setting with a change of clothes for Sora and the gang is a nice touch. Neverland is more like Meverland. You don't actually explore Neverland itself, it's just Captain Hook's ship and flying around Big Ben once you finish it. Flying in general is pretty fun, but you can't use it outside of Neverland. Again, not the worst area, but certainly not the best. Hollow Bastion is ginormous, and since the rooms can often look the same, you're likely to get lost here and there. At least it's pretty to look at. The same goes for the final area, the end of the world, but it is super linear and has barrages of the toughest enemies thrown at you, so there is not much to say here. Sora himself controls, passable. Attacking feels satisfying and only consists of one button apart from spell layouts and using the D-pad to scroll through the battle menus, but holy mother of God is the jumping stiff. Well, at the start anyway. Near the end of Monstro, you'll get an ability that lets you jump higher, and by clearing Neverland, you can glide to make platforming easier, and you get a faster glide once you beat Chernobog in the end of the world. You don't get these upgrades until the second half of the game, however, and by that point, the damage has long been done. I never look forward to jumping on these damn hippos in Deep Jungle. The timing and distance are so freaking strict, and all it leads to is a shortcut back to the starting point. On the plus side, when each of the worlds have been completed or by special means, you'll get different Keyblades with different attributes. But it's usually a case of one Keyblade having higher values than the rest, so you use that one and nothing else. You'll need the higher numbers for bosses, that's for sure. At the end of each world, you'll fight either one of the Disney villains, a giant Heartless that'll get in your way, or both. And if you're playing this game on Proud Mode, one of the harder difficulties, Kingdom Hearts suddenly turns into Dark Souls. Kiss my ass, Ursula, needing to cast magic on your cauldron. Oh, and now you're giant and throwing lightning strikes that hit like a truck. Thanks very much for being a pain to defeat. And no amount of summons can help you with these. I mean, all you get is Simba, Genie, Bambi, Tinkerbell, and Mushu. Kinda wish I could have Shiva, or Neo Bahamut, or hell, screw the Keyblade, the Knights of the Round will fix everything. But I guess I can use Dumbo to spray water on the final boss. Haha, watch as your health bar slowly depletes from my H2O of death. Oh, you don't look too impressed there. Doesn't matter, I'll still mildly annoy you. Honestly, the summons are pretty useless overall, except for Bambi to help you get rare materials, and Tinkerbell who gradually heals you and restores your life when you die. She's definitely the most helpful with the harder bosses, especially the optional ones, and she'll stay in the battle with you until she has to refill your life again. And yes, as I just said, there are optional bosses in Kingdom Hearts, all of which are intense battles testing your skills and strength, except for the Phantom and Neverland that more or less test your patience and how much MP you have. And we also get an optional boss exclusive to the Final Mix version with a black hooded figure that sounds like he knows of Sora's future in sequels, and challenges you one-on-one with lasers and lightsabers. It's a cool fight, but damn does this dude have a lot of attacks. But no doubt the other toughest battle in the game is against the special guest character, Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. This guy is something else entirely. A small keyblade against a long-ass Odachi doesn't seem particularly fair, and just like the hooded figure, Sephiroth has a ton of different attacks and enjoys moving around constantly. Carry some elixirs with you for the love of God. You really don't want to be affected by his Heartless Angel attack, which drains all of your HP and MP. All of these bosses will definitely require a lot of grinding to beat them, but a good incentive to do so is to collect various materials from enemies and give them to these Moogles in Traverse Town to synthesize items and gear. Synthesizing most of this stuff will also unlock the Ultima weapon, which is the best keyblade in the game. However, you need to find a lot of rare materials from very specific Heartless in very specific rooms, mostly where you defeated the bosses, and obtaining the Ultima weapon is one of the most painfully drawn out tasks I've ever done in an RPG. I spent around 15 hours getting all the ingredients I needed, and by the time I finally crafted the Ultima weapon, I was around level 90 ready to go for the optional bosses. But I imagine by then I would have been able to defeat them without the Ultima weapon, so obtaining it is really just a way of wiping the floor with the enemies and bosses even further. Don't get me wrong, getting the Ultima weapon was worth it, and it was the only motivation I had to synthesize some awesome gear and increase the experience points I earned, eventually leveling up my entire party to level 100 in a shorter amount of time. But the journey getting there was not at all fun. And the weird thing is that synthesizing is only a flick to the nuts in the final mix version. The original PS2 version didn't require nearly as many materials but didn't have as much equipment to synthesize, so it's sort of a strange compromise. And then there's, the Gummi Ship. Everyone's favorite parts of the game whenever you enter a new world. People often like to compare these segments to Star Fox because you're on rails shooting clusters of bad guys and earning new parts that you can add to your ship. The game offers you different designs to use and you can always make your own ship from scratch, but the editing tool is a pain to use, so all I do is add extra weapons to the basic model and create an abomination of a ship once I'm done. Just use a Gummi Ship with a ton of MP and use missiles constantly to breeze your way through these. If you are the creative type though, you can always buy parts from Sid in Traverse Town, and you can get a few rare pieces from rescuing Dalmatian puppies and bringing them back to Pongo and Purdy. You can go back to the Gummi Ship levels at any time, but thankfully they aren't necessary to finish the game 100%, so that's probably good to hear for completionists. Graphically, I think Kingdom Hearts is a pretty good looking early PS2 game. The Disney characters and their worlds are faithful to the movies, the Final Fantasy characters look great, especially after seeing some of them on the PS1, the characters exclusive to Kingdom Hearts are plenty expressive and nicely detailed, and the designs for some of the Heartless are incredibly neat. Obviously, compared to the later games, the first Kingdom Hearts doesn't look spectacular, but again, this is an early PS2 game, and even 15 years later, there's still some charm to the graphics. However, the lip syncing and animations during cutscenes are hit and miss. Sometimes the characters' mouths match with the dialogue fairly well, but other times they go the lazy route and paint flapping lips on their faces to show who's speaking. The movements on some of the Disney characters can also be occasionally stiff, which often reminds me that I'm playing a video game rather than feeling absorbed into the atmosphere. It can be a little distracting when it happens, but at least we have the soundtrack to make up for it, and damn what a score. This is the work of the now famous Yoko Shimomura, who also did the soundtrack for Final Fight and Street Fighter II: The World Warrior, with the Kingdom Hearts music being her most lauded. And I want to shake her hand and give her a ginormous hug for allowing each of the worlds to have their own dedicated themes. One while you're exploring and one while you're battling, so you're not hearing the same themes over and over again like in most RPGs, a choice I highly welcome. It's been so long since its initial release, but the first Kingdom Hearts is still a very fun time, though it definitely shows signs of age. Even to this day, I still think it's one of the better games in the series, but I know that newcomers may find it hard to adapt to the simplistic and slightly archaic control scheme. The writing's not the stuff of kings, that's for sure, but unfortunately, unless you don't mind reading about plots on wikis, in order to fully understand the overarching story of the Kingdom Hearts series, you have to play them in order, including this one and what we thought were spin-offs. That's not saying the original Kingdom Hearts isn't worth checking out, because it certainly is, especially if you're new to the series, but just don't expect the tightest combat around. It's got first game syndrome written all over it, but it's a great starting point for a beloved video game franchise, and the sequels will take this game and improve certain aspects. We'll save that for after the Platinum Games Marathon though, when we cover both versions of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories for the Game Boy Advance and the PlayStation 2. Right now though, I think I've had a long enough break for the marathon, so let's get back to it and cover the next game that came out after Metal Gear Rising, the Wonderful 101 for the Wii U. In my opinion, a severely underrated game, but I'll get further into that in due time. See you later. The Wonderful 101 for the Wii U. In my opinion, a severely underrated game, but I'll get further into that in due time.